Welcome to Leaving Academia, Becoming a Freelance Editor. I'm your host, Paulina Cossette. Today's guest, Bhaskar Raman, brings a wealth of experience from the inside. He's worked as a project manager and copy editor for academic packagers and university presses for years. He's now freelancing for a range of academic publishers, corporations, and nonprofits, and Bhaskar is ready to take the next big step: attracting private clients. In this episode, we dive into what that shift really takes. You'll hear us uncover who Bhaskar's ideal clients are and the real pain points they're struggling with, how editors don't just correct grammar, they help clients achieve meaningful, often life-changing outcomes, smart strategies for batch creating content and getting it seen on the platform of your choice, what marketing actually is, it's not what you think, and why showing up as your full, authentic self is the most powerful marketing tool you have. If you've been stuck in imposter syndrome, or if the idea of marketing yourself makes you cringe, this episode will pull back the curtain and help you reframe what it means to sell. You'll walk away with a clearer picture of how to start drawing in clients without feeling salesy or inauthentic. Now, here's my coaching session with Bhaskar. Welcome to Leaving Academia, Becoming a Freelance Editor, the podcast. I'm your host, Paulina Cossette. In 2019, I was a political science professor who was fed up with the stress and hostility of academia, not to mention the low pay. I left my tenure-track job and went from barely surviving to thriving as a freelance academic editor. Today, I own Acadia Editing Services, an editing and coaching business that brings in 6 figures a year. In this podcast, I'll discuss the challenges of academia, what academic editing involves, and what life as a freelancer looks like. If you're willing to jump outside your comfort zone, it is possible to find joy, true flexibility, and a profitable and rewarding career as an academic editor. Thanks for listening. Well, hi, Bhaskar. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Paulina. Thanks for having me.
So today we are going to do a coaching episode and we're going to focus on marketing. But before we get into that, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you became an editor and how you started your business?
Actually, I did my bachelor's degree in chemical engineering and I hated it. And so I was looking for a way out and I moved to journalism, and I did a degree in journalism from Ohio University. And I worked at a few papers, small town papers in the US, for moving back to India just before the Great Recession. And I continued to work in journalism for a while, but I wasn't enjoying it. And a friend of mine was working at a company that does packaging work for academic publishers, and they had a big new account coming in, and they offered me the project, the chance to lead that project. So I went in. It was pretty much learning on the fly because it's so different from editing for a daily newspaper, And I was managing this team of editors, about 100 freelancers and a couple of dozen in-house editors and stuff. And we were at the peak, I think it reached where we were putting out like 300-400 books a month.
Wow.
So yeah, it just got ridiculously stressful. And I realized after a point that it was constantly a race to cut costs and see how far we can compromise on quality. And that was where the competition was among the packages. And I didn't want to be a part of that. And so during that time, I built a big network of other freelance editors, agencies, kind of small editing agencies, and that have like 5-6 editors on their own. So I reached out to a few of them, and one of them put me on a retainer, and I quit my job and I went freelance in 2019. And since then, I've pretty much, all of my business growth has been through word of mouth and through networking. I'm a member of the CIEP, which I highly, highly recommend to every editor because it's such an amazing community. And I've got a lot of work from there, either through referrals from colleagues or through their boards, through their directory. It's just really, really been helpful. And I've grown so much as an editor through that. And now I've actually been branching out a little into other areas like fiction and things like that. But my core focus still remains academic and nonfiction editing. And I'm looking to create a more structured marketing system. I'm building my website right now and hoping to start doing a little bit of, blogging and other forms of outreach and see where that takes me. So I'm just looking for, strategies. I've done a lot of reading and I've read about, inbound marketing and all of those things, but it's a lot and it's really overwhelming. And so I'm just trying to take it one step at a time. So I'm building the website and I should be done with that in a few weeks, and then I have to decide what next.
Yeah.
And I have to solve this life work.
Yeah, it's really hard to balance running the business and then also marketing yourself. I think, if you don't have any clients, then sure, you have all the time in the world for marketing. But if you are running a business and you have several clients and you're focused on delivering that work, it can be really tough, I think, to carve out time for the website and the marketing and all of that. So we can talk a little bit about that too. Yeah, you mentioned starting at a packager. When I started out, I had just published my book with Routledge, who worked with Nugent. And that's where I got the idea to start copy editing, as I had worked with one of their freelancers, and she edited my book. I think she gave us 48 hours to go through all the changes and send it back to her, which as an author felt like, holy crap, that's quick, But then when I became a freelancer for them, I realized it's because the packager only gives you like 3 weeks to copy edit the book and liaise with the author and incorporate all the changes. And so I think I became a pretty fast editor. And so I would try to give the authors maybe 5 or 6 days or something. But even then they were like, I'm busy. I don't have time for this, I can't do it this quickly. So yeah, I totally hear you on there is a lot of pressure with some of them to turn things around as quickly as possible.
It comes from the publishers rather than the packages themselves. I mean, they're partly responsible, I guess, because that's what they're pitching, just speed and efficiency. But yeah, it becomes rather unrealistic at a certain point.
Yeah. So, so you talked a little bit about the types of editing projects that you're taking on. You said academic, nonfiction, and then a little bit of fiction work. What kind of academic editing are you doing? Do you specialize in certain fields, or what kind of projects do you tend to take on?
Mostly, I work in the humanities and social sciences. I especially enjoy history, political science, and adjacent areas. But I've done other things. I've done a certain amount of medical editing as well, and I do legal editing also. That's more for my nonprofit clients. I haven't done that in an academic setting as much, but yeah, those are areas. And I also do project management.
Say more about that. What do you mean when you're working for a client? What does project management look like?
So that's typically something I do with publishers, where I'm responsible for shepherding a manuscript from the commissioning stage through to printing, and kind of holding it to schedules and budgets and quality standards within that. So,
And that's as a freelancer?
Um,
Or you
Typically, it's more like the most recent project management gig I had, which ran for about a couple of years, was with a nonprofit, and it wasn't as a freelancer, but I was contracted to work about up to 20 hours a week with them. So it was more a sort of a retainer.
Okay, yeah. So
Um,
it's like contract work.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no,
I mean,
but
it wasn't. I wasn't an employee. Um, yeah.
that makes sense. Um, what about engineering? You mentioned that your background initially is in chemical engineering. Do you edit any engineering papers?
20 years on, and I'm still running as hard as I can away from that.
That's fair. Okay. Yeah, I ask because I think about, I think the engineering and the medical and the legal tend to pay a bit more than like the social sciences and humanities, but you have to actually like reading the stuff that you're editing too. So that's
Yeah.
understandable. Okay. And are your projects mostly like journal articles or books, or is it a mix, or what do you get?
The stuff that I do is almost entirely books because right now, like, I don't get work directly from authors much at all. I've done some with students, proofreading their papers and things, but that's a little different. The books I do are mostly for university presses or um, sometimes profession in corporate publishers, and can edit that.
So
So
you're essentially freelancing for the university
yes,
presses or other publishers. Okay. And are you
yeah. Basically, I'm on
looking,
their roster, and they just send me work whenever.
got it. Are you looking to work directly with authors, with faculty or grad students, or are you looking to stay as as a freelancer for the presses?
Um, yes, on this.
Okay.
But yeah, I definitely do want to work more directly with authors because I suspect that I'm going to find it a lot more satisfying. You know? Especially like I just finished a project on a book on Chinese Buddhism for Harvard University Press, and I happen to have an interest in Eastern religious literature. I know Sanskrit, so that came in really handy, and I was able to suggest a lot of tweaks to the translations, catch errors in Sanskrit texts, and things like that, which helped me build a really strong rapport with the author. And by the end, it was a really, really satisfying collaborative experience, and I really want to do more of that.
Yeah, I agree. It is a lot of fun. I mean, I think when I started out, I followed a very similar path to you where I was freelancing for the presses, and so you get the advantage is you get a ton of work coming in, especially if they decide they like you, right? The desk
Yeah.
editor, whoever the contact is, you'll be their go-to copy editor. And so you can get a lot of work, get a lot of practice. I think I edited when I was working for Nugent, I think I edited like 35 books in a year or something like that. It was a lot. But then working directly with authors, you take on much, you have more space and time, I think, to take on a mentorship kind of role. And you can build a long-term relationship with them where they come back to you for different projects over and over again. They also pay more than the publishers do, I think. So that's nice too. Okay. So, all right. So it sounds like maybe the area that I can help the most is helping you get set up with some marketing and messaging and a strategy. You said you've got the website almost done. Maybe we can put together a strategy for content and a system for putting out content, whether it be blogs or social media posts or whatever. We can get into that. to help you start attracting more private clients. And so you can continue with the freelance work for the presses and others as you build up your base of private clients. And then if you decide you have enough private clients, you don't want to freelance anymore, you can cut them loose, or whatever ends up working for you. Does that sound good? Yeah. Okay. Oh, one more question. What about editing dissertations? How do you feel about that?
I'm open to it, but it's also a lot more limiting because of the rules around the kinds of edit that you can make, right? Um,
I think it
and
depends.
it depends on the university, I guess. But
Yeah.
uh, I've done uh, one thesis and several papers for Chinese students in the UK, and and it was a little frustrating because there were things that I knew needed to be changed, but I wasn't allowed to do or say anything about it. And yeah, I didn't enjoy that I had to return something that I knew could be a lot better, but I wasn't allowed to interfere with it in that way.
Okay. So we'll put a pin in that. We'll hold off on the dissertations. Okay. So let's dive in here. What would you say? Have you had any private? You said you have had private clients contact you, but is it all through referrals, or are they finding you any other, like through LinkedIn or anything like that?
I had very many of late, actually. It was I had a few that happened a couple of years ago, and that was through my CIEP directory entry.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And so, how would you, if you were to sit back and paint a picture of your ideal client, the perfect person that you would want to work with, what would that look like? How would you describe them?
Actually, a lot like the author I just finished working with. So somebody who writes really interesting, engaging scholarship with a really nice conversational style of writing, and somebody who's open to um, being edited beyond just shepherding commas. And I really like engaging with the text and getting into it. And I'd like an author that's willing to give me that space and uh, work with me that way. So that means I would also like to work in areas that I'm a little more, uh, that I have my own strengths. And so the areas that I've already worked in, like I said, history, social science, those things, but also, religious studies, particularly around Eastern religions. And um, I also have like a really strong interest um, in things to do with race and social studies around that. So those are areas that I'd love to work in as well.
And do you see yourself with, are you still thinking of doing copy editing, or you think you want to do developmental structural editing like earlier in the process, or?
That's something I would like to do very much. And I've recently completed a training course on that from the CIEP. And it's something I'd like to try. Um, I did I did have one inquiry for it, but then they went dormant because they haven't finished their manuscript yet. Um, but it's definitely a service I want to offer more of as it were.
And what about coaching? Do you think you'd want to like get on Zoom calls with authors to help them meet their writing goals, or would you prefer to just edit the manuscript and maybe like exchange emails?
I enjoy conversation, so I think that's something that I would probably like to do. The only reason I haven't offered it as a service is I'm not sure exactly what it entails, like what my clients would be looking for, uh, you know, beyond just somebody cracking the whip and giving them deadlines for their writing and things like that. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's something that I've been meaning to do a little bit of training on before I start offering it as a service. But it's something I do want to explore at some point.
Okay. Believe it or not, I think a lot of authors actually just want somebody to hold them to their deadlines. So, like this, just having.
I want somebody to hold me to my deadlines.
Yeah. Just knowing that you have a meeting scheduled on the calendar with your book coach is enough to motivate you to write when otherwise you might put it off, But yeah, I think there's a bit more involved with helping them work through their challenges or writer's block and things like that. I think Laura Portwood Stacer, she has the book proposal book is fantastic if you ever work with people on book proposals. But I think she has a course, and I think it's designed for authors to learn how to developmentally edit themselves. But I've heard from other editors that it was also helpful from the editor's perspective to take that. So that might be something you look into. I could put a link in the show notes for anybody listening who might want to look at that. Okay, I feel like I have a good sense of where you think you want to go. So let's dig into your ideal clients here, because I think when it comes to marketing, and you're in the digital marketing for academic entrepreneurs group that we have, so you know this because I talk about it all the time in the videos that we share and stuff. But the key with marketing is, we often, as professionals, feel like we have to lead on our website and in our marketing copy with our credentials. We feel like we have to prove ourselves and show, I'm a professional, I'm trained in this, I've published that, I've done all these things. We feel like we have to prove that we're qualified to work with someone. But when it comes to marketing, that's, in my opinion, is the wrong approach. I think that when someone comes to our website or our LinkedIn page, they're focused on themselves and their own problems. And they're thinking about, I'm really struggling with this paper, or I can't manage to find time to write, or, whatever they're facing and dealing with. And they're looking for someone who can help them solve those problems. And so the tactic in marketing, as we're creating our website or any marketing content, is instead of leading with our credentials, we need to lead with our clients or our potential clients' pain points and their struggles. So thinking in terms of what you've just described for your ideal client, somebody who's maybe working on a book, who works in history, social sciences, Eastern religion, who wants a collaborative relationship with an editor who can help them shepherd their book or whatever through the publishing process. What would you say, if you could get into the mind of your potential clients, what are they feeling that leads them to seek out an editor to work with? Why would they Google developmental editor or academic editor or something like that?
Probably because I'm thinking they are pretty confident in their ideas, but not so much in their presentation, and they're looking for help with that. They might be not as proficient with English as they like, or at least just lack confidence there. I think those are the major things that they would be looking for, at least if they're looking for a copy editor. Since I haven't done much developmental editing, I'm finding it a little harder to come up with things there, but probably there it might be also that there's a little bit of information overload and they're struggling to organize their material as clearly as they'd like. Okay, the kind of structure that would be both informative and engaging. They're not sure if they're going to be able to connect with their target audience. I think those are some of the issues that I could help solve with it.
I think that's a fantastic start. And I've been taking some notes here, but you can go back I could send them to you and you can go back and listen to the episode again. But I think the points that you just made are a really diverse selection of the problems that people are facing. So I would say for anybody listening, if you're in a similar situation, I think this is the place to start, is to first identify who your ideal client is. Who do you want to work with? And then the next step is what we just did. What are their struggles? What are, from their own mind, if you can hop inside their brain, what are they struggling with? And so you've done an excellent job here. They're confident in their ideas, but not so much the presentation. Maybe they're not as proficient in English, or they feel like they lack confidence. Maybe I saw a lot of peer reviewers who would criticize somebody's English in their writing because they knew the person's first language was in English, and oftentimes I felt like their English was perfectly fine, but yet the peer reviewers are biased, and bring that up as a complaint when it really isn't. Anyway, so maybe that person is lacking confidence and needs somebody to reassure them and just look it over and reassure them that their writing is good. We had also talked about help with sticking to deadlines. You mentioned for developmental editing, I think this was great. Information overload, struggling to organize the material clearly, being informative but also engaging. So taking that outline, the next step is to start writing marketing copy. And to do that effectively, we have to really try to be as vivid as possible, as vivid and specific as possible. We want to use language that evokes emotion, that makes people feel something. So instead of, and it's tough to do this on the fly, but instead of saying they're confident in their ideas, but not so much the presentation, another way we might say this is, and we say it like we're speaking to the author, on the website, we're writing to the author who's coming to our website. Your ideas and arguments have merit, but you're laying awake at night worried that people aren't going to understand what you're saying or something like that. Like you're not just saying that you're worried that the argument is unclear or that it's not the presentation is unclear. You're trying to get inside their head and talking about, you're constantly spinning your wheels worrying about how to phrase this term or something, or you're laying awake at night worried about such and such, right? So I think that's the next step, is to take that outline of what we just went through and turn it into words that evoke really strong emotions.
Sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely makes sense.
Good. And the reason...
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, do you suggest focusing on, the negative emotions, the stress of it, or the sense of relief that they might get when they know that they're in safe hands?
That's an excellent question. So what I think, or the approach that I take, and in our membership group, in the Academic Entrepreneurs Group, we have the wireframe that I provide for the website homepage. And essentially, when you are writing marketing copy, whether it's, a lot of text for a homepage or if it's just a little bit of text for like a LinkedIn post, you want to take the person reading it, your target client, on a journey. You want to start off by emphasizing the negative, the pain points, the struggle. You've been working on this book forever, but you're laying awake at night wondering if the argument is clear, or whatever those pain points are. You want to sort of agitate those struggles to show them that you understand what they're going through. The next step, and all of this comes from Donald Miller's Story Brand Framework. If anybody is curious about that, there's a great book called Marketing Made Easy by Donald Miller and J.J. Peterson that is fantastic. The next step after you agitate the pain points is to introduce empathy and authority. And so you're saying you're struggling with X, Y, and Z, and I get it because I've been there, right? And this is where you show empathy and authority. You could say, I've shepherded X number of books through the publishing process because you worked as a project manager, right? For the different presses and stuff, or whatever experience you want to draw on. You can say, look, I get it. I know how hard it is because I've worked with X number of authors and publishing their books. And then you offer the solution, right? So you start with the negative and the pain points. You offer the empathy and authority to say, I understand. And then you say, here's how I can help, right? And so it's like you're kind of going on this journey from struggle, pain to here's some hope, right? Let me offer you some hope. Does that make sense? And so you say you're laying awake at night, worried about whether or not your arguments are going to make sense. Obviously you draw that out a bit more. Then I totally get it. I've worked with X number of authors shepherding their books from, submission to print or whatever. Here's how I can help you, right? And that's where you want to continue with the vivid language and drawing on the emotion and saying, how can you help them solve this problem that you've introduced at the start of the post or the homepage or whatever, I have experience in, these subject areas, and I can offer feedback. I'm somebody who's empathetic, and I want to be your supporter, your cheerleader, your mentor in this collaborative relationship. I'm not going to judge you the way your colleagues might, or a peer reviewer or whatever, right? All of these advantages that you offer because of your experience and your personality and your style, that's how you can help them accomplish these goals, right? Publishing the book, getting tenure, whatever it is. And I think it's important to think, when we're talking about the struggles and the pain points and the problems you can help your clients solve, like you said at the beginning, you said it's not just about correcting the commas, right? Because, anybody can proofread a text and correct commas. But when a client goes out and is looking for an editor, they're wanting more than just somebody to proofread their paper, right? They're wanting that collaborative partnership. They're wanting that non-judgmental guide. They're wanting somebody who can save them time, right? Who can help them sleep at night, right? Continuing the metaphor of staying awake at night. And so those are really great pain points and then positive, hopeful solutions that you can offer that are worth a lot of money to people, right? I think having, people aren't going to pay you thousands of dollars just to correct commas in their book, but they will pay you thousands of dollars to make sure that they can spend more of the summer with their family rather than, struggling for hours and hours and hours inside working on their book. How does that feel? You think you can pull out some of that vivid language in your copy?
That sounds like a pitch I would be a lot more confident making. And it sounds like at that stage, I won't feel a certain internal pressure to justify my fees because it's it's laying out the value that I'm offering, and that's significant. Um, in terms of improvement to time, in terms of peace of mind, all of that, and of course the quality of your book or paper. So yeah, I mean that's the sort, and I do like um, writing in those vivid terms, and so that does suit me very well.
Yeah, before we started the call, I actually peeked at your LinkedIn profile, and I think that you are doing a lot of what you should be doing in your, I think it was the about section. I think a lot of it was the positive, the how you can help people. And I think you're absolutely on the right track there. I would just start with the struggles, right? Because I think a lot of the time an author will know that they have a problem, right? They will know that they're struggling to finish their book, that they've been working on it for years and their tenure clock is ticking and they've got to get this done. But sometimes they need us to articulate that for them, that they need, if they come to our website and in the header section at the very top, we have about 3 seconds to hook them, right, on the homepage. Otherwise, they're going to click away. And that's why I think it's important to emphasize those pain points and those struggles, is because you want them to go, wow, it's like he's inside my head, like he totally understands what I'm suffering with. And then you show them the positive, like, look, I get it, and here's how I can help you. And that makes them feel a sense of hope and possible relief. And that's what actually gets them to scroll down and keep reading. And then they see your bio, they see that you have all this experience in publishing, that you're qualified, and then they connect with you, right? They send the email or they fill out the contact form. But, you mentioned this point about articulating your value, and I think that's really important because so many editors are afraid to charge more money, right? Well, you're in India, so I'm not sure of the typical rates there. But in the U.S., we can use the Editorial Freelancers Association website as a guide. They do a survey every year where they ask editors to share their rates. And so we get the median rates for what people are charging for each service every year. And but I find that those are low, right? Even that range that they give you, I think for copy editing, for humanities, it's like, I think the median is somewhere around 4 cents a word or something like that. And it might be 4 to 5 cents a word. And when I'm editing, I'm charging more like 8 cents a word for a journal article. I charge a little less for a book because obviously it's longer and that would be prohibitively expensive. But, and I think that people are scared to ask for that kind of money because they're afraid either they're going to lose clients or they feel like they're cheating somebody, or they're like, they're asking for too much. But, if somebody has a PhD and specializes in these areas, they have so much to offer. And for you, you're sort of on the other side of the coin where you don't have the PhD, right? But you have this insider knowledge, which in many ways is even more valuable than a PhD, I think, right? Like, you have worked for years inside these packaging companies and with publishers, and you have watched and learned and helped push books through this process. And so you know what it takes for a book to get published. You know what people on the inside are looking for. And that is incredibly valuable knowledge for an author, even an author who's published a book before, right? They don't really understand what's going on the inside. So I would lean really hard on that as well, to say, like, I can demystify this process for you, or like I can pull back the curtain and help you, guide you through this process because I know what happens and what everybody's looking for. And so, yeah, to speak to that value point, and then I'll stop talking. Instead of thinking about, I'm charging X cents per word, or I'm making X dollars an hour or whatever, think about what is the final product and the final outcome worth to the client, right? And I always use the example of like a job market letter. If somebody's on the job market, on the academic job market, and you edit their cover letter and their job market materials or something like that, and it helps them land an interview at their dream school for their dream job, how much is that worth to somebody? Is it worth $100? Certainly. Is it worth $500? I would think so, right? Is it worth $1,000? It's worth a lot of money, I would think, for somebody to improve your materials to help get you that interview, which is very difficult, right? We get like 300 applications at least for each academic position for you to land an interview. That's worth a lot of money. Or for books, if that book is going to get you tenure, what is it worth to your client to get the book published, right? And to make a big splash in their field and become well known for their research? That's worth a lot of money, right? And so you should never feel guilty when you're providing the expertise and the support and the mentorship to help them achieve those outcomes.
That's really interesting. Like I hadn't thought of leaning on that side of it so much. My pitch has generally been, I'm good at editing, and so yeah, that's a really interesting way to think about it, and I'd probably push that a little higher up on my website as well.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's funny
really
because we are all, I mean, just as humans, we are all so egocentric. We're so focused on ourselves, and in many ways it's like a defensive mechanism, I think, where we feel like we have to defend who we are. Like I was saying earlier, we have to feel like we have to provide all these credentials and prove that we're good enough. And really, that's not what the client wants to see, because they're focused as an egocentric human, they're focused on themselves and their problems. And so if you can speak in their language and get inside their mind and reassure them that you can help them achieve what they want to achieve within boundaries, of course, right? We can't guarantee that their book's going to get published or anything, but if you can help shepherd them through this process and be their unwavering supporter and guide, then that's what they want to hear, I think, right? Like they want to know that that they're gonna come out of this relationship with the book or whatever the outcome is that they're looking for. So let's talk a little bit about a strategy for creating content, because I know it can be hard to find the time to do that when you're also editing for clients. What would you say is a challenge you face when you think about creating content, either on social media or blogging or anything like that?
I haven't started doing it yet, but I have prepared a list of topics that I'd like to address that I think would be relevant to my target audience. My real worry around that is most of these things may already have been addressed by other editors. There's probably already content out there covering pretty much everything. So it's not easy coming up with new things to write about that, other editors haven't already done and probably done better than me.
Well, I think that last point is debatable. We don't know if they've done it better than you or not. But what I would say about, and I have to admit freely that coming up with topics is something that I hate doing. Like I could write all day long. If you give me a topic or a prompt, I could write. But having to brainstorm topics is one of the things I just hate doing. So I totally understand that. But I think, something that I've learned in having a business that I think is really exciting is that, yes, there are plenty of other editors out there, right? And many of them are writing about how to be a more effective writer or how to, publish a journal or whatever it is. But none of them are going to write in your style or with your personality, right? And you are a unique person. You have all of this professional experience behind you. You have a personal life story and journey that you've been on, right? From even going back to childhood and your life growing up, and then going to college and traveling and right, and all these things. Each of us, we all have a personal story that's unique to us. And we bring that to our business and to our marketing. And it informs the way that we work with people. And it also informs the way that we talk about our work, right? Which is essentially what marketing is us talking about our services and how we help people. That's the root of it. So even if you took the exact same topic or prompt that someone else has written about, what you come up with is going to be unique, right? And it's going to have your own style and your own flavor and your own contributions. And I think that is key when, a lot of people come to me and they say, oh, is the market flooded? Are there too many editors out there? How am I going to find work? Well, this is a very personal relationship, right? We said that earlier, that you want a collaborative relationship with your clients. That could involve Zoom calls, and it's, reading their writing, which a lot of people feel very vulnerable about. And so someone may go out there and read, my blog post about how do I turn my dissertation into a book. That's something I wrote about a while back. And they might read it and go, I don't like this lady. She is strange. She is not my style, right? This is not for me. I'm not going to hire her. But then they go and they read your blog post about how to turn a dissertation into a book. And something about it, they connect with it, right? They connect with your personality, with your tone, with your style of writing. And so that, I think, is a really helpful way, at least in my mind, of how to think about how you put content out there, whether it's social media posts or blogging or whatever. You want to infuse your writing with your own voice, and especially now that the world is obsessed with ChatGPT and AI doing all our writing for us, right? It just sounds bland. If you can put out blog posts and social media posts that really reflect your own ideas and your personal experience and your voice, that is going to draw your ideal clients to you, right? The people out there that your voice resonates with, they're going to be attracted to you and they're going to want to hire you. How does that feel?
Yeah, that definitely makes me feel better about it. Yeah.
Good.
I think like I'd like to. Yeah, I mean, as you were speaking, I was thinking through, how what sort of styles I could bring to it, and use my writing also as a way of showing my skill with the language, and so that it works not just in terms of the content, but in terms of the style and what it's demonstrating to the potential customers.
Yeah, I think your writing style, your sense of humor, right? Your one idea that you can draw on for content topics is your experience in publishing, right? Think up, because everybody loves storytelling, right? Everybody wants to read a story. When you, if you start a post with something like, oh, I was thinking about 5 years ago when a book about such and such came across my desk. You start like this story, and then you tell a little bit of the story of what happened. And at the end, you offer a lesson or, something that you learned, or maybe you pose a question to the people reading your post, right? This works really well on LinkedIn. If you end the post with a question, have you ever experienced something like this? That gets people commenting which expands the reach of the post, right, with the algorithm. Also, storytelling is great because you start with a hook, a line that's a hook, right, that previews that you're going to be telling a story, and people click on that link that says like read more or whatever to get the full post to open up. And any engagement that you can get them to do, whether it's tapping on an image or tapping on the read more to read the full post, or liking or commenting, any kind of interaction that you can get people to make with your posts, whether LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, that is going to also expand the reach with the algorithm. So I think that's, if you're worried about being unique, that's another approach too, is nobody can tell stories from your life except you. And you can frame it in a way that gives sort of like a lesson for people, or a takeaway, as well as a call to action at the end, either to comment or to contact you, to schedule a call or email you about a project or something like that. So in terms of, strategy, I think what you mentioned, you have this list of topics. I always recommend that we batch our work so that we're not switching tasks, right? Task switching is very mentally draining and takes a lot more time. So I always suggest to people to first, in one sitting, make a list of all your topics. And then maybe in the next sitting, choose 3 or 4 or 5 of those topics, whatever you have time for, and outline several of those topics, right? And then in the next sitting, when you come back to it, draft, 3 or 4 of those articles if you can. And for blog posts, they don't have to be more than 1,000 or 1,500 words. Then maybe the next sitting, you edit them and you schedule them to post. If you want to release one each week or something, you would schedule them in a tool like Buffer, I really love for social media, or, on your blog, on your website. I'm sure there's a way to schedule them in advance. And so that way you're not having to switch tasks between topics and outlines and writing and posting. You're just kind of doing it in batches. How does that feel for you?
Part of it, yeah. I think that feels doable because I can probably set aside a day every couple of weeks, something like that, to work for this. But what does scare me a little bit is the social media aspect of it, because I'm not particularly fond of social media and I'm not very active in it. I don't have Twitter or Blue Sky. I just have like one Facebook account that I use to stay in touch with a lot of people from back in the day. And I really don't feel like the idea of having a whole lot of, social media handles to manage, it just overwhelms me a lot. So is that something you could speak to?
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. I think a lot of editors and academics too, I think, tend to be introverts and just don't like to, the idea of like dancing on an Instagram reel just terrifies them, So absolutely, you should not do anything that doesn't feel right to you. But and there's a lot, I've got a couple podcast episodes I can link to in the notes about SEO and how blogging helps, bring your website up in search results for people. I also suggest that if you want to lead with blogging as your main strategy, do that, right? Publish the blogs on your website, and then you can write up a short summary of the post and post that on LinkedIn every time you release a blog. And then it's not so much a social media post as it is just sharing your latest blog article with the people you're connected to on LinkedIn. The other strategy that's worked really well for me is I created a free account on Medium, and I would just copy and paste my blog posts from my website onto Medium, because a lot of the time there'll be people on Medium, and the article will pop up for them, and you're going to get more reach that way than if you just have it on your website. The final point that I think is really super helpful is to share those posts on Reddit. I've said many times on the podcast that I have a mixed relationship with Reddit because there are people on there do not like it if you seem like you're selling them anything. But if you can find a subreddit like professors or academia, or maybe there's a subfield specific one or something, and you can share your blog, a link to your blog post in a helpful way, you'll get a lot of traffic for a long time through that. Because when people search for, like the post I mentioned earlier, how do I turn my dissertation into a book, right? They search Google for that. Your website probably isn't going to rank high enough for it to come up right away. But that Reddit post will rank high enough because Reddit ranks very highly on Google searches or internet searches. And so that's any way that you can think to get your blog articles in front of more people, I think is a good strategy to have. And so you're using social media, but you're not like, making reels or taking ridiculous videos or anything like that. How does that feel?
Follow up on your Reddit search, which makes a lot of sense because now that I think about it, it's always like no matter what I Google, it's always on my first page of results. So are you suggesting that I create Reddit posts, putting the stuff out there, or use it like in response to people's questions?
You can do both. So you can create a post in Reddit that says, hey, I'm an academic editor and I just wrote a blog post about blah, blah, blah. And you link to it in a way that says, I hope this is helpful or something like that. Or if you see, if you kind of lurk in those subreddits and you see somebody asking a question about publishing or about, finishing their book or something like that, you can say, hey, I have a blog post about this. Why don't you check it out? And the beautiful thing there is you're not just talking to the original poster, right? The author of the post. You're talking to the often thousands of people who are reading those comments as well. And if you look in Reddit, I forget how to do it, but you can look at your insights or your data analytics on Reddit, and you can see the number of impressions on your post or on your comments. It's often like in the tens of thousands. And so, so if you leave a comment, it's not just the original poster who's going to read it. It's everybody else who's scrolling through that thread that will see it and click on your link as well. And it's the great thing about that, too, is that these things are evergreen, right? If you have an article about how to turn a dissertation into a book, people are always going to have that question. That's not unique to this year or next year or anything like that. People are always going to be Googling that. They're always, for years to come, they're going to come back to that blog post and read what you had to say on whatever the topic was. I still get hits on stuff through Reddit and my blog that I wrote years ago. So that's a great long-term strategy for trying to drive traffic to your website. And then in your blog post itself on your website, of course, you want to include a few places in the post where you have a link to your sign up for your newsletter or, contact me about a project. You'd have a contact form. So hopefully that helps.
Definitely does. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think? Any final questions or concerns or anything like that you want to mention before we wrap up?
Just a lot for me to think about, but more really to act on. So I think I'll have a lot of questions as I start working through these things. And of course, I can ask you about that because I'm on your editors group, which is really great. And I've learned a lot from it already, and I'm just getting started. So thank you so much for that. Right now I don't think I have anything else.
Well, thank you, Bhaskar. This has been a really fun conversation. I talked a lot, so hopefully it wasn't overwhelming. But yes, as Bhaskar said, he's in the digital marketing for academic entrepreneurs. It's a monthly membership. We meet once a month on Zoom. We have monthly videos. We have a Slack channel where everybody can ask questions, get answers. And I think it's a really nice community of people who are kind and who like to support each other. And so I think it's been a lot of fun getting to know everybody there. But thank you for doing this. Let me know if anything comes to mind, if I can support you in any way, working through these topics or strategies. And I'm happy to do that. If you're unhappy in academia and you think you might be a good editor or writing coach, check out my course, Becoming an Academic Editor. This digital course is paired with a 12-week group coaching program to support you through your decision to leave academia or not, and to start building a profitable and rewarding academic editing business. Learn more by going to acadiaediting.com/become an editor. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time.